is this place? Am I dead?
Father, look at me. I'm right here, son. I'm right here.
How is this possible?
You are banished from death. You're it.
We'll be together, my love. Soon. Forever.
We will be together again soon, my love. What has happened to me?
The curse has bound us together.
And how do we break it?
We find the one who cast it on us.
I had a family once. A wife. And a son. And I buried them along with everyone I ever knew.
What's up, guys? I'm GamerMD83 and I'm here to talk about Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. So not only will I be covering actual information about the game, but I will also be sharing my thoughts about it, since this is one of my most anticipated games of 2014. So we finally have a game that is set in Middle-earth and doesn't follow the storyline of Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Every time they announce a new Lord of the Rings game, I seriously always hoped for a new story, like a different storyline set in the same world, because the world is already amazing. But I always, for a video game, I was always like, why don't they let us play like a story of our own, a new character in the same world? Like the Lord of the Rings story or the Hobbit story could be going on like in the background, but we would be playing somewhere else. It's a standalone title. It's set in Middle-earth. It does, I believe, it's considered to be a prequel to the Lord of the Rings. They do go into specific things that are in Lord of the Rings, like little issues and stuff that are involved in the whole world and not just that storyline. So that's why I'm so excited about this game. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my god. It's a third-person action RPG set in an open world. So to begin with, let's get the general stuff out of the way. The developer is Monolith Productions, the publisher is Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment. The genre is an action RPG. The release date is October 7th, 2014, and the platforms are the PS4, PS3, Xbox One, Xbox 360, and PC. The game obviously takes place in Tolkien's Middle-earth and is set in Mordor before it becomes the hellhole of the original trilogy. During this time, many different races and wildlife have come and gone, but no matter how many years have passed, the inhabitants of Mordor remain vigilant for the return of Sauron, who has been away for thousands of years. We will be traveling through Mordor, visiting ancient castles, enemy camps, vast wilderness and countrysides, orc mines, the dead marshes, the Black Gate, volcanic mountainsides, grasslands, and much more. In the prologue of the game, Sauron does end up returning, so you will see the land around you changing because of his return and the evil he has brought with him. Another really exciting thing is that the story will also explore the origin of the Rings of Power, and all of this is being told by Christian Cantamesa, one of the chief writers and designers of Red Dead Redemption. Monolith is also promising the involvement of a familiar face. Gollum will be showing up in the game during this time frame, since he is also in search for answers of his own, and like the protagonist, is also struggling with an opposing duality. No doubt these similarities will open the doors to interesting opportunities between the two of them. So although this is a standalone title, there has been a great deal of inspiration from the movies in order to bring the world to life and to make the encounters memorable and epic. So developers are saying that this game is going to pretty much take place only in Mordor. So it's going to be an open world, but it's not like you could go everywhere, to like everywhere on the Middle-earth map. I guess it's kind of like you could consider it the beginning of the fall of Mordor. And this whole thing with Gollum, I'm excited that they're including Gollum, but at the same time, I just hope that it's not like too much. Because sometimes when developers want to include a familiar face from titles that are coming from an already existing media source, like this one, a movie and a book, sometimes it's kind of forced on it. Like I feel like sometimes when they want to include familiar faces or familiar themes or something like that, or familiar locations, it sometimes feels like it's too much, like it's too in your face, and it's like, okay, that didn't really make sense, and you could tell that it was just them trying to put a familiar face in there, so you go, oh look, it's so-and-so. So I'm excited about Gollum being in it, but I really hope that his involvement makes sense, and it's not just them trying to throw him in there just for the sake of him being a familiar face. You play as a dedicated ranger of the garrison that stands to protect the Black Gate, named Talion. This garrison is charged to protect the frontier from the imminent return of Sauron, and when he does return, Sauron and his minions slaughter Talion's friends, family, and even Talion himself. But after his death, Talion mysteriously reawakens. Turns out that for unknown reasons, a wraith, a spirit of vengeance and power, has merged itself with Talion, bringing him back to life. The interesting thing about this transformation is that Talion is brought back to life by merging with this mysterious entity, creating a bond of vengeance. But Talion and the entity are separate. The spirit has its own identity and its own agenda. They are both just as confused about their bond and are cursed to be linked together with no peace. This is what drives them to move forward and find answers as to why this has happened and how they can end it. And not to mention, a little bit of vengeance on the side wouldn't hurt. I'm intrigued to know more about Talion. He kind of looks like, or at least he kind of reminds me of Aragorn, and I think because the whole ranger thing. But, I mean, I love Aragorn, so him reminding me of Aragorn is not a bad thing. I don't think he's going to be like a replica of Aragorn, because he has so many different sides to him, like this whole thing about the wraith. So this is really going to be intriguing. At least for me, I really want to know more. I really love the idea of him having this connection with this wraith, without him wanting it. Like, he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be resting in peace with his family. In the footage that has been shown for the game, you could see whenever there's like the wraith is like you're using a wraith skill, or you're going into wraith mode or something, or when he's using his wraith powers, you could see the wraith. Like, you could see the way the wraith looks, and I think that's so cool. So it's not just this like faceless spirit. You could actually see the spirit and you could hear him. I'm guessing that they're going to be talking to each other throughout the game. Like, there are going to be scenes where he's just going to be talking to the wraith and the wraith back to him. So I think that's going to be super awesome. But yeah, I'm excited to know more about Talion. A lot of people are comparing Shadow of Mordor to Assassin's Creed, and in all honesty, it really does look a lot like Assassin's Creed set in Middle-earth. But what I believe Shadow of Mordor is improving on the Assassin's Creed gameplay style is the enemy AI. In Assassin's Creed, the enemies are some of the stupidest enemies in video games. But in this game, the enemy AI system is being vamped up in a way that very few games have done. The combat system seems to be a huge focus in Shadow of Mordor, and not only for individual fights, but also by having the enemies evolve along with you. The enemies are alive in their own world. They level up, they get promoted, They have names, weaknesses, strengths, and these all change depending on how you choose to approach a fight or an encounter. The enemy system is being dubbed the Nemesis system because any enemy in the game can become a villain. This all depends on your choices and actions when dealing with enemies in the game. So depending on what you do, a Joe Schmo enemy could eventually turn into a boss that has strengths, weaknesses, smack talk, great last words, memorable missions, henchmen, etc. You create all of this through your actions in the world. Each enemy remembers its encounter with you and will respond accordingly. Orcs have a hierarchy: orc captains, orc bodyguards, war chief, etc. And each fights and responds differently on the battlefield. The combat system echoes that of another Warner Brothers game, the Batman Arkham series, but in this one, there are more options, exploits, and consequences. In Shadow of Mordor, you have the choice as to how you want to approach a combat situation. Talion has 3 main weapons: a sword, his son's broken blade that serves as his dagger for up close and personal throat slicing, and his bow for ranged attacks. Each combat skill can be leveled up, and each weapon can gain runes. Several runes can be slotted on each weapon, depending on how you kill enemies, and the strength of the rune is based off of the level of the enemy. With what I know so far, in enemy encounters you have the option to assassinate, dominate, or terrorize. Assassinate is if you choose to just end the orc's life right then and there. Dominate is so that your wraith skills allow you to turn enemies into sleeper agents. They become strategic moles that when activated, they will attack your enemy targets. They will not always kill them, but they can drop their health significantly, making your encounter with that enemy much easier. And terrorize is if you let the enemy go so that they can let other enemies in the area know about your doings, causing fear in different enemy camps. Fear actually plays a large role in this game for enemies. For example, if you go up against an orc and you don't kill them, but you do burn them badly, they get away alive, but they now have gained a fear or weakness against fire. So like many RPGs make your actions affect the story, this one takes that concept and applies it to the enemies so that you're not just mindlessly battling enemy A, B, C, etc. The enemies actually remember you, and depending on what you did in your first encounter with them, your second encounter will be different because of what you did the first time around. Enemy minions will even hold grudges on you, and when you kill a commander, some little minion could end up taking their place. The thing about combat and the enemy systems in games like this that look like Assassin's Creed or that look like Batman the Arkham games is that it can become repetitive. The Nemesis system in this game seems to be trying to prevent that from happening, trying to prevent the game to become, or the combat to become repetitive, like in Assassin's Creed, where you just you encounter the same type of enemy over and over. Like there are different types, like there are like the bigger ones, the bigger guys with the big axes, and then there's the ones that are faster and they have a sword, like that. But it's always this repetitive thing, and the AI in Assassin's Creed is just so bad. Like they literally will see you. They'll see you, you hide, and then they're like, oh, never mind. or they'll see that you killed one of their comrades, and they're like, and they look for you for a while, and then when they don't find you, they're like, whatever, I didn't like the guy anyways. So the AI system in this one seems like they're taking it up the notch that it needed to be taken up. They're different encounters, they level up, so it's not always the same fight, even though you're fighting the same guy or the same enemy. There aren't like repetitions of the same enemy. They all have different names. So hopefully that will prevent the whole repetition type of thing. But even though this Nemesis system could get rid of repetitive enemy fighting and combat and stuff like that, making it a little more personal, making it tied to the story, the combat, I'm all for that. But what could get repetitive is maybe missions. That's one thing that Assassin's Creed kind of suffers. And if the story isn't there, if the story isn't interesting enough, that repetitiveness becomes kind of annoying and frustrating and just like, I'm so fed up with this already, because I already did a mission like this where it's like, you know, it might be a different mission, a different guy or a different person that you're going to go look for, but the idea is the same. Like, it's like, okay, I gotta go snoop out these people, or I gotta eavesdrop on these people. Even though they're different people, it's the same type of mission. That's what I'm hoping not to see here. It says that there are side missions, and I'm really hoping that there's a variety. Like I said, if the story is there, if it's interesting enough, I'll go through it. You know, I'll be like, whatever. I really want to know more. I want to know what's going to happen. I'm intrigued enough to just put up with it. But it's always a plus when the story's there and you also have, you know, these engaging missions that are different. There's like different things about them where you're not always expecting what's coming up next, you know, where you're like, oh, this is one of those missions. Since Talion and the Wraith are two separate beings, a simple button push allows you to go into Wraith mode. This lets you slip into the Wraith's eyes. You see things that aren't visible to Talion, and get special abilities such as being able to track enemies across long distances, or slow down time to get an accurate range shot. Among other abilities, you also get an ability called Shadow Strike. This allows you to go from one place to another in a single flash. You could use this to surprise kill an enemy, or to simply move from place to place. Or why not both? When Talion gets killed by an enemy, since he is already dead, you don't just restart your checkpoint. The world around you continues and you return after a time lapse. This means that the enemies continue going about their business, leveling up, moving up in rank, gaining different skills, etc. So when you return, your encounters with the enemies are different. They're never the same. There are different ways of approaching missions in Shadow of Mordor. You have the opportunity to choose to be stealthy. You could approach head-on in a bloody battle, or you could be strategic by using moles within enemy camps to do a lot of the dirty work for you, so that when you get there, your job becomes a lot easier. Different playstyles are rewarded as well. Depending on how you attack, ranged, melee, stealth, etc., you will be rewarded XP points for that specific skill. Also, when it comes to the enemies, they don't always give you the same amount of XP. For example, you can choose to be strategic about your XP by not killing your enemies on the first encounter, and this way you allow them to level up and go up in rank, and later when you decide to finish them off, they will now provide a substantial XP increase. You can also chain together multiple attacks on an enemy, like in the Batman Arkham games. This will add a multiplier to your final XP when killing the enemy. When you collect enough XP, you earn one skill point, which you can spend on one of two trees, the Ranger skill tree and the Wraith skill tree. In the Wraith skill tree, for example, there is a special power that you can unlock that allows the Wraith within Talion to separate itself from him in order to kill a target on its own. So not only do you have a full campaign with a dedicated story, but also extensive side missions, and they're all linked to the Nemesis system. Because of this, your playthroughs should never be the same. So Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is appearing to be the Middle-earth RPG I always hoped to see. I've never really been one to focus too much on the combat in video games, but this Nemesis system seems very intriguing, and I can't wait to see how it works out. Tolkien once said that there could be no story without a fall. We see this multiple times throughout The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Many characters have their redeeming qualities, but fight against a contrasting duality that eventually leads to their demise. Boromir, Gollum, Galadriel, Frodo, Bilbo. But even then, where there is demise, there is always a potential for redemption. I believe this is what Tolkien really wanted to reiterate. So even though this is a new story, I'm glad to see that the developer is staying true to that theme that Tolkien found so important to delve into. So what do you guys think of Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor? Let me know in the comments down below. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys want to know more about Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, again, you could find a lot of really cool information in Gameinformer, in the Gameinformer issue. This is issue 248. It's the December 2013 issue. There's also a pretty cool app called the Official Shadow of Mordor Palantir app. You can find it on iTunes. I'll provide the link in the description. There's like videos and all this stuff on there. And Gameinformer also had a month full of interviews and information on the game on their website. That link will also be in the description. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys could check out for this game if you want to know more, what it's about, what it looks like. You can find a lot of videos on YouTube as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.